Hey everybody, it's David Ryle with Food for All.
And this is Hayden Remick with Food for All as well.
And you are joining us in our virtual workspace, the new 2020 reality. We thought we would take some time, finally, now that it's October, to connect with you. We actually did a call like this last week, which is also available on our YouTube channel, which has a fuller discussion with people that actually attended that call, but we wanted to make this presentation available to you in an abbreviated form. And basically, we wanted to just kind of have a conversation about what's been going on thus far and what you can be looking for now that it's late October and things that are sort of relevant to your garden at this time. Ultimately, we're thinking of starting to offer something like this every month during the growing season. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we'll be offering in November, but we do have plans for 2021 and sort of how we can use this space to better equip you and empower you for garden success as we kind of continue to navigate this very interesting space. But even after COVID is behind us, we think that this could be a great way for us to share some information with you moving forward. 2020 has been, Hayden, would you agree, a very interesting year for us in the Food for All space?
Yes. Yes.
So
we have learned a lot, I will say that.
Yeah. So, you know, with all of the bad news out there, we really felt like when the pandemic started to rear its head in the spring that we actually needed to accelerate our efforts and ramp up our efforts in the gardens, because we saw right away that food was going to be a big issue and food access was going to be a big issue, and that's really central to what we're doing with Food for All. So in the midst of many other nonprofits and businesses sort of shutting down, we were figuring out how to expand our efforts, and we pushed really hard to get as many of our Food for All partner sites to stay open or to stay open just for us. And we also expanded our youth garden enterprise and efforts with the gardens that we operate with the youth. So in some cases, we were able to sort of redirect seedlings that were bound for some of our Food for All sites and got them in the ground, working with youth. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, but in a large way, Food for All was carried forward by the incredible efforts, very small, dedicated group of people that wanted to see it happen, or who let us, and mostly Hayden, come in and make sure that the garden stayed healthy. So I just wanted to say right out of the gate, a big thank you to Hayden and those incredible individuals that made sure that we were still growing during this year. But, you know, as far as growing seasons go, we've had some pretty remarkable circumstances just on the face of things. It's been a really nice growing year, wouldn't you say, Hayden?
Yeah, I'd say so. The last couple months have been absolutely gorgeous for the most part. It's been a little dry, but all the weather has been just ideal for getting out into our gardens. So I'm grateful for that after a very hot summer. Yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit. I can pull up the slide right here. And, you know, it's been so gorgeous out. The other day, we're out in one of our gardens with a bunch of kids planting tons of trees. So even when we're kind of winding down in the season, there's still things to be done, still things to plant, sort of plans to make for the future and to get in a stronger position for next season. So let me see if I can, how does that look to you?
It looks pretty good. Yeah, that's a beautiful picture. It looks like quite a few different pollinators.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit about this. This is one
Please.
of our pollinator beds that we had. We've installed this in the spring at one of our sites in Westchester, which is our QVC garden. So they have a ton of raised beds, and we knew that in a position where they were going to be sort of at minimal staffing and minimal ability to do maintenance in the garden, we wanted to install something that would be effective, useful, beautiful, and easy to care for the whole season. So this is one of the beds we seeded directly with a bunch of native pollinator plants. So it's been ever changing this whole year. There's different flowers blooming from early spring all the way into the late fall. I mean, this was only a few weeks ago when I took this picture. So these are a lot of the late fall. There's some asters and some goldenrods and some false sunflowers in there. But yes, we're just grateful that they accepted our experiment on these pollinator plants. It worked out really nicely.
That is really gorgeous, and
Yeah.
I've seen this in person, and I gotta say, just the whole subject of pollinators and really fits nicely into this idea of food for all. We really need to be thinking about the insects that are also working in these spaces and the insects that we rely on for our food supply. And, having pollinators in our garden is something that I'd like to be sure that we're sort of reintroducing into the conversation and making sure to emphasize in the years to come. But this project that we did with QVC was a great example of sort of adapting and being resilient in the face of some real challenges. There was obviously with COVID, some seriously huge challenges to having people on the ground. And we've come up with some really innovative ways to have protocols in place so that we can manage these gardens, but also just with crop selection, there's things that we can do to make sure that these gardens are still productive, even if we're not able to manage them the way that we have in the past. And I'll just kind of make a quick plug that Hayden and I are actively talking with the rest of the Trellis staff about how we can sort of tailor the Food for All program to each of our partner sites in 2021, regardless of how long the pandemic goes on. So we're looking forward to having those conversations with you in the weeks ahead.
Yeah. I just want to sort of bring this into some practical things that we can think of this time of year too. So we're sort of winding down. It's getting colder and colder right now. We know there's a frost on the forecast. So I wanted to show you one of the most valuable tools that we have for sort of managing our crops in a more low maintenance way. This is row cover. It's a pretty simple system of fabric that lets in light, it lets in rainwater and all of the air flow that plants need. And it's just a few hoops that basically support this. And either you can use rocks or something to hold it down. If you use staples, you want to be very careful because you can tear it. And this can last a few seasons at least if we take good care of it. So the fewer holes we're putting into there, the better for our row cover. But this is a great system we use for sort of extending our season a little bit. This keeps at least 1 or 2 degrees of temperature depending on the weight. So there's different weights for winter, summer, fall, row cover. And this is one of our lighter ones, but it gives at least a couple degrees of protection against frost. And we know that we're actually expecting a frost here on the forecast Friday evening, I think.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad you're mentioning this, Aiden, because this is definitely the time of year that we start sort of encouraging our gardeners to keep an eye on the forecast. But it just sort of worked out with this recording that, as you said, we've got one coming and we know it. So this is a great time for us to talk about utilizing row cover to extend the season. This is ideal for some crops at this time of year, but not for other ones. And we can get into that in a little bit. But I'll let you keep talking on this.
Oh yeah, we were just going to touch on, I think, this is also a great way to protect against pests. It's a physical barrier against most insects that are still active around this time of year, like your cabbage loopers, harlequin bugs sometimes, aphids, whiteflies. If you want more information on pests, we're going to do another upload of a video and presentation specifically for our pests. So that'll be a super specific, much more informative, in-depth view on pest controls.
But suffice it to say, we talk about this in this presentation quite a bit, and this is just a big part of the ethos of organic gardening and farming, that the first line of defense, or one of the first lines of defense, is just creating some barriers between your crops and the pests. A lot of people these days tend to think, they see a bug in the garden, and the question is, what can I spray it with? And that's really, for an organic gardener, that's the last line of defense, is what can you spray it with? There are some organic controls that we do use in the garden, but generally speaking, we really try to use the row cover in the spring and the fall, especially, as not only frost protection, but pest protection as well.
Yeah, and I just wanted to pull up this picture, which is a picture of these collard greens at the Dornsife Center in West Philly. This garden is always just pumping out so much food, but you can see they've sort of reached the maximum height of the hoops, and we're getting a little claustrophobic in there. But that's just because they grow almost so much faster when covered up like that. In comparison to another bed here that was uncovered, these basically just outpaced those ones by so much because of that little extra warmth, protection from pests. You see, we didn't spray these beds at all, and these are basically perfect collard green leaves. Looking really good right now.
Those are gorgeous. That's incredible.
Yes. Here's just a picture of some harlequin bugs we're trying to avoid. And if we had kept these other collard greens covered, we would not have been in the shape you can see here.
Yeah, harlequin bugs are kind of pernicious. They are unmistakable when you see them, but they tend to be kind of pretty hardy. They have hardy appetites. So when they get established, they tend to go after brassica crops. So you'll see them in collards, kale, cabbage, and the like, that whole family. But they tend to not really get established until late July and through August. So if your crops are out there at that time, you definitely want to keep an eye out for them. But again, we can talk more about controlling this particular pest during another conversation. But this is a good example of out of control.
Exactly. And here's just another picture of a cabbage leaper. Keep an eye out for these guys. You can pick them off if you see them, but everything's pretty much slowing down this time of year. Another common thing, there's cabbage whiteflies on the bottom of a kale leaf.
And hopefully this frost that we're about to get is going to really slow down the cabbage loopers, which have been thriving through this so-called Indian summer. They've been doing really, really well with these extendedly warm temperatures.
Exactly. So, you know, once we have this frost, really, our pests problems are going to go way down, hopefully, which kind of brings us into our hardier crops that we're going to be, we have in most of our gardens right now that will withstand this coming frost. So really before this frost on Friday, we want to get all of our summer crops out of the garden, all the tomatoes, all the peppers, all the eggplants, because those fruits are super sensitive. And as soon as they hit 32, they kind of can turn to mush. So we want to make sure, even if you got green tomatoes, very tiny peppers, very tiny eggplants, I would say get them out of the garden. Just better safe than sorry.
So that would be the big task for this week. I'm sorry, Hayden. So like the big task.
Oh yes, exactly.
If you still have tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, you're going to want to try to get those out of the garden this week before Friday. Your local forecast might be very different from ours. If you're in the city, you know, you might be in the mid 30s, but out our way, my forecast for my place is 24, which could mean 21 or 20. So this is going to be a big week for getting those heavy fruiters out of the garden.
Yeah, and I just a quick note also, I'm located in Philadelphia, and our forecast is saying 32 degrees as well. So better safe than sorry, get everything out of your garden.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some crops that can take the cold.
Yeah, so I think that crops that love cool weather are some of the most interesting crops. Here's a picture of a collard green leaf that's massive. And something that I find really cool about these brassica plants and plants that can tolerate a frost is that they get much sweeter after a frost. And that's just because basically it's a plant's mechanism of avoiding freezing. They condense all their sugars so that there's less water in the leaf, in the cell material, and basically it insulates them against the frost. So they pull the sugar out of the root systems into their leaves, and it makes it sweeter for us, more nutritious, and it helps them withstand these frosts. It's just so cool.
When if someone first introduced that concept to me of like sweetness in the brassicas, I had to taste it to believe it, and it really is much sweeter after a frost. It's kind of incredible.
Yes. So another task for you this week is go out and taste your greens, and then taste them again after Friday.
It's almost the opposite. When they sit in the garden all summer long, they're like the opposite. They're so bitter after it's like they're angry with us.
And they're like,
exactly.
Yeah. All right. So, David, I know how much you love Asian greens, so I'm going to let you talk a little bit about this stuff.
Yeah, anybody that's known me for any amount of time knows that I'm a big proponent of Asian greens. I love them. This is a great example here. This is called Tokyo Bacana, which is basically an open-headed Chinese cabbage that originated from Japan. And it is it's got the nutritional profile of like a kale, but it's about as tender as lettuce. So it's like one of my favorites because it's really versatile and it grows like many Asian greens incredibly fast. It's one of my favorites for sure.
I love throwing it in stir fries or even just eating it raw in a salad. Yeah, they make great sort of lettuce style wraps if you're going to fill them up. I mean, there's so much you can do with this stuff. Yeah, it's so good.
And if you harvest it right, by taking the largest outer leaves or by cutting it high enough, you'll get multiple harvests out of these crops. That's another reason that I like these a lot. Was that Mizuna that you just showed us?
This is Mizuna. Okay. So vibrant.
So this is another Asian green called Mizuna. There's different varieties of it. This is kind of like arugula meets lettuce or a mustard green meets lettuce. It's kind of got like this peppery note to it, but it's another Asian green that grows very fast, extremely well in our climate during the spring and fall months. It's another big favorite of mine.
Another favorite.
Oh my
This is
gosh.
yeah, these are so good. This is the hakurai turnip, which we try to grow in our gardens every year. We're going to do a better job of introducing them in the early spring because we just want everyone to be able to taste these because they're so delicious.
I will have to second
Super
that.
easy to grow. Yeah, once they're the size of a golf ball to really the size of a softball, I guess you could get them that big. Within the range between a golf ball and a baseball, they're the sweetest and probably the best.
If you have, as you see in
resilient.
this, if you have, as you see in this picture, the drip tape irrigation, and you have that on a very specific timer, you will see them get, if you've got good nutrient quality in your soil, you will get them really big. And without them getting too pithy, they get kind of huge and they stay wonderful. But you're right, that range is really what you're looking for, golf ball to baseball, for you sports lovers.
And another favorite root veggie that can withstand some frosts. Beets are a little bit more sensitive than brassicas, but not by all that much. And again, they get so much sweeter after a frost. I love growing beets because they just get so massive sometimes, and they have so much depth of color to them, and you can tell how many nutrients are packed into those weird little roots. Yeah, I love them.
Me too.
What else we got? Ooh, kohlrabi. This is another beautiful crop. So these are related to brassicas in the brassica family. They're sort of like almost a turnip, but they're sort of sweet. You can eat the leaves like a very tender kale. They're really a vibrant plant in the garden too. They always stand out. People are usually confused when they see them because they're just so, they look kind of like an alien spaceship. That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Really wonderful.
If
you haven't tried it, you should. They are wonderful. Makes a great slaw. Makes great chips for hummus. There's a lot of uses for these for sure.
Yeah. So we just wanted to talk briefly. We're getting towards the end of the year, and some things you can do to sort of take care of the plants that will withstand a frost and take care of your soil over the winter. We'll start to see all the leaves falling off the trees right now. You can either gather those in your garden or put them in leaf bags and put them on your beds for the winter. A nice thick layer, a couple inches. If you soak them down, they can stay in place. Or you can see here we got a big pile of compost. This is our Eagle View garden, and it was really looking great into the end of the season. And that Swiss chard should be out there. It's just so vibrant. But the compost, a nice thick layer of compost on the soil will help feed your soil, keep the roots a little bit warmer, and protect the soil over the winter. It gets pretty harsh out there. Let's see. Yes.
Oh, wow. What a beautiful picture. Yeah, I think that's really key. That's a big question that we get this time of year is, what can we be doing sort of to shut our garden down or to get ready for the winter, and mulching and getting ready to kind of put your beds to sleep for the winter is really key for your soil health going into 2021. We will be talking at sort of greater length during November call, which we'll be setting up a presentation very similar to this, but we will also be setting up individual garden calls with all of our Food for All partners. So we will be reaching out to set those calls up with you to talk through the intricacies of how to care for your particular garden, as well as some of our thoughts and plans for spring of 2021. We are very mindful of some of the challenges and limitations from site to site, and we are actually planning to kind of tailor the Food for All program for each of our partners, given what your challenges are. So just know that we're thinking very much about you guys, and we've got some plans for you, but we will be discussing in next month's call, very similar to this, what you can do to really get your garden set up for success for the winter and for the 2021 growing season, as well as setting up some other meetings with you. But the mulch is going to be a really critical thing for the weeks ahead. Well, is there anything else, Hayden, that we should really be letting people know about?
I think, we're going to be reaching out to everyone in the next week or so, trying to set up individual calls, and that'll be really the meat of the end of our season. But
all right.
Yeah, I guess, thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. And please take some time to check out our website and our Facebook page. There are some really interesting things going on at Trellis right now. Most notably, the season of solidarity has begun. This is a 3-month-long campaign, which is replacing our farm to table and fundraiser for this time of year. Given everything that Trellis has done this year to respond to this crisis and to make sure that we are sort of meeting our community's needs, this is a great opportunity for you to stand with us and to contribute towards something that's really meaningful and really powerful within our community and within our world. You can vote with your dollars too. So this is a great time to contribute towards meaningful change in our world. And so I would really encourage you to check out our website at www.trellisfortomorrow.org, and you'll see the banner for our Season of Solidarity, and also find out some of the other things that we've done. But during our next call, our November call, we're going to share with you the impacts of the Food for All program this year, as well as the impact of our Youth Seed Enterprise program, which was an incredible success. We doubled the size of that program and doubled the number of gardens that we were using in the community. So there's a lot of really exciting things going on, but I want to take just this last moment to thank you so much for joining us for this call. Hayden, thank you so much for your insight and for helping put this presentation together.
Anytime, yeah.
Really
it's actually pretty fun, so I'm excited moving forward.
It is, and every time we talk about you guys, we're just so proud of the work that you're doing, and this has been a very challenging year, but every pound really matters. And in some cases, we've seen that the need in these pantries has increased by about 400%. So, it really does make a difference, whether it feels like it or not, and we're trying to do a better job of sharing those stories with you. So thanks again, and stay tuned, and you'll be hearing from us. We haven't forgotten about you. All right.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.